Alright, now when a zombie dies, it should crumple to the ground, not just disappear. By keeping the consequences of the player's actions remaining in the game, we can remind them where they've been and what they've done. So let's go edit our zombie script. We want to have bodies of the zombies lying on the ground. Let's go and find our die function right down the bottom here. Die. Now we're destroying the zombie. Let's not do that. Let's delete destroy myself. So when it dies, it plays a sound effect, sets its health to 0, and it changes some physics things. Let's get it to also play the dead animation. So we'll go to animation and grab play animation, and let's pop that up the top there in the die function and play animation dead. And then, just like we had with the hurt animation checking if it's looped, we'll do the same thing to check if the dead animation has looped. So we'll right click when animation hurt is looped, duplicate it. This one will be when dead has looped. Now our dead animation, we actually want to pause the animation when it loops. So we'll get rid of this if health part. We'll keep the if myself exists. We want to, when the dead animation is looped, we'll go to the previous animation frame and then pause it on there so it freezes the death animation. So from animation, we'll grab go to next animation frame, change that to go to previous, and then from animation we want pause current animation. And the other thing we need to remember is our play correct animations function up here also needs to make sure it doesn't override the dead animation. So we had it doing that with the hurt animation, but we need to extend this condition here as well. So we need to say if current animation is not hurt and if current animation is not dead. The AND block is from operators up the top here, true and false. Grab that AND. We'll duplicate current animation does not equal hurt, change that one to dead, put this on the right side, put the not equals hurt on the left, and then we can connect this whole condition there into the if. So it'll play the correct animations as long as it's not hurt and it's not dead. Okay, very good. Let's play that now, see how our dead zombies look. Now instead of disappearing, we have these cool zombie bodies. Nice. Okay. When we move around in our game, we can improve how the camera tracks the player. By smoothing out the camera movement, we can make the player's movement feel more dynamic. The name for this is camera lerp, or linear interpolation, and that means finding values in between other values. We can do this easily by getting our camera to chase after the player by giving some velocities to the camera instead of just making the camera snap to the center of the player. So let's go and find our camera script, which is actually on this little bit of smoke here over on the left. Edit that camera script. Okay, let's find our move the camera function. Here it is. All it's doing is centering on the player. Let's get rid of that. We're going to add some velocity blocks in here. So we'll go to physics and we'll grab set velocity x 0 from physics. And we don't want the velocity to be 0, so we'll throw that over there. We want it to chase towards the player, and the way that it'll do that is it'll find the difference between the player's position and the camera's position, and if the player is really far away, the velocity will be bigger. If the player is really close, the velocity will be smaller. So the difference between two numbers is a minus, subtraction. So we'll go to operators, grab plus, change that to minus, And then we'll go to transform and grab center X position of myself. But we don't want it to be myself, we want it to be the player. So the player's position minus my position. So we'll go to, we've got instance player right here, we can duplicate that. The center of the player minus the center of myself. So that's again from transform, center X of myself. And let's pop that in there. And then we want to do the same thing for the Y velocity as well. So we'll duplicate that velocity X block, set that to velocity Y, center Y position of the player minus center Y position of myself. Now when we go and play this, the camera might be a bit slow, so we can multiply these numbers, but we'll see how it looks. So we can see the camera is quite a bit smoother. But the camera does take a while to catch up. So I think that camera is a little bit slow. So what we might do is multiply these numbers. So we'll go to operators and grab that plus block, change that to times, and let's set the X velocity to times 3. So this times 3. And then for the Y velocity, let's make it times 6. So it's a bit quicker vertically. You can play with these multipliers though if you want. And that feels pretty cool. Alright, how about positioning the camera? So since our game is about shooting towards enemies, we should make our camera display as much of the game as possible by moving in front of the player to show us what we're looking at. We can make the camera change positions depending on which way we're facing. So still in the camera script, which is right here, in the camera script, we want to go find our move the camera function that we were just working on. And we want to have our velocity X change based on whether the player is facing left or facing right. So we'll put velocity Y up the top there, drag out velocity X, and our velocity X is going to go inside an if, else, if block. So we'll go to control flow, grab this if block, and tweak it to be an if, else, if. Okay, now if the player is facing to the right, the way that we can check that is if the scale of the player is greater than 0. So we need a greater than block from operators, starts out as equals, greater than, scale of the player. Scale is from transform, scale X of myself, not of myself, but of the player. So we'll get instance player in there. If the scale of the player is greater than, and we need a number, so we can go to operators, 0. If it's greater than 0, it's facing to the right. So we'll put our velocity X block in there. But what if it's facing to the left? We will make that a less than 0, if the scale is less than 0. Now, currently our velocity X was going on the difference from the center of the player to the center of the camera. Let's say center of player plus 250. So the player, the camera will be chasing in front of the player, so we can see more in front of the player. So we want to increase this number. If we go to operators, grab a plus block, we'll say center of the player plus, let's try 250. Plus 250. Center of the player plus 250 minus X of myself. And then if the player is facing left, we will set the velocity X to the center of the player minus 250. So we get more space to the left. Okay, let's test that out, see if the camera positioning looks a bit better. And here we can see the player is over on the side. We have a lot more space here to see what's going on in our game. And then when we change directions, we have more space over this way. Cool. Alright, now let's do some screen shake. When someone shows you a game and they ask how to improve it, usually the answer is to add some screen shake because nobody does it, it's super easy, and it makes your game better. And that quote is from JW from Vlambeer. So let's get some screen shake in there. Let's go and edit our gun script. We'll get our gun to tell the player to send a recoil message. So we'll go to our shoot function on the gun right here, and let's send a message. So we'll go to events, and if we scroll down a little, we want send message to object. Send message to object. It's in our shoot function, and let's send the message recoil to the player. So click on object, change that to player. Send recoil to the player. Okay, now we need our player to receive that. So whenever the gun shoots, the player will do some recoil. We edit our player script. And let's go all the way down to the bottom, and let's add a message receiver, events, when I receive a message. And that message was recoil. When I receive the recoil message, I want to shake the camera. Shake the camera. So, if we're dying or if we're dead, we probably don't want to do that. So, we'll go to control flow, grab an if block, and dying and dead, not dying and not dead. So we need an and block from operators, and then an equals block. Change that equals to not equals, and we want to know as long as the current animation is not dying. So current animation from animation, and then we just need some text in the right of there, dying, current animation not dying, and current animation not dead. Okay, so when we receive recoil, we're going to shake the screen. Screen shake is from looks. We want this block, vertically shake camera 5 pixels over 1 second. Grab that. Let's horizontally shake the camera, and let's make it 30 pixels, and let's make it 0.4 seconds. You can play with these. You could make it vertical if you wanted. I think horizontal will look better because the gun's going back. And you could try changing the pixels and change the time as well. Let's test that out. And now we have some screen shake when we shoot. Very cool. Now when our player gets hurt, we can also shake the screen. So let's go find our get hurt function, which is right here. When the player gets hurt, let's shake the screen. We'll go to looks again. We want vertically shake camera. Pop that up the top there. Let's horizontally shake the camera. Let's do 60 pixels. So when you get hurt, it'll shake quite a bit. We'll get it to do it for 0.7 seconds. And now, what about the zombies? When they get hit, we could shake the screen a bit as well. Let's close our player script, save that, go and find our zombie, edit the zombie script, and find the zombies get hurt function, which is right here. From looks, we want vertically shake camera, and let's make it, let's randomize how much it shakes. If we go to operators, we can use our random integer block let's try between 15 and 25 for how many pixels it will vertically shake. And then over time, let's make that 0.2 seconds. So a quick shake, a sharp little shake there. Let's play that now. And we should see when we shoot the zombies, Screenshake actually has quite a big impact on the game feel, which is the whole point. Okay, very nice. Now let's try some player knockback. We want to go and edit our player script for this. So our player can keep shooting forever. Let's impose a cost on that by introducing player knockback to slow down the player. JW from Vlambeer in his presentation said, if you put a firing button in a game, give someone a reason not to press it. So let's go and find our recoil message receiver all the way down the bottom here that we just added in previously. When we are shooting, we'll get the player to get pushed back a bit. So depending on if they're shooting left or shooting right, they'll get pushed to the left or to the right. And the way that we can check that is with an if block from control flow. Pop that underneath the Screenshake. And let's make this an if, else, if. And we want to know if the scale of myself, the player, is greater than 0. So we need a greater than block from operators. It starts out as equals. Let's change equals to greater than. And scale x of myself is from transform. Scale x of myself greater than 0. So we just put a 0 in there. And let's set the velocity. So if we go to physics, set velocity x of the player, that's its speed. Let's make it whatever it was minus 100. So we need a minus block from operators. Minus 100. And then in there we want velocity x, which is from physics. Velocity x. So if the player is facing right, they'll get pushed back. Minus is to the left. Else if their scale is less than 0, if they're facing left, they should get pushed to the right. So we'll increase their velocity. So duplicate set velocity x, make that x plus 100. And you could change this 100 number here if you wanted the knockback for when the player is shooting to be stronger or weaker. I think 100 should work fine. Let's play it. So the gun is saying to the player to do some recoil, and we get knocked back. So if I'm right on the edge of something like that, the knockback will push me off. And if you did want to make it feel stronger, you could maybe, let's try something silly. Let's try minus 1000 and plus 1000. So that's a really strong gun there. I think 100 is probably fine. Okay, very cool.